Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt, and this is Team Chicago Challenge. It is Thanksgiving. This is the 125th anniversary of the first automobile race in America. Now maybe the 126th. You got to really count years separately, as I found out recently. But anyhow, so back in 1895, a newspaper in Chicago put up, I think, $5,000 or $10,000 award for the first automobile race. Now this is back in the day when there was real newspapers and real news. Not like we have now in America, where we have empty shirts, cheap suits running the newspapers because they all lie. But that's my political comment also, which I am entitled to add on to all my shows. So back then, they put up money for the first automobile race. 6 cars entered. There might have been more cars entered, but 6 cars made it down here. On Thanksgiving in 1895, it snowed. They started at this location. I'm going to show you a picture. You can see the museum in the background. They started around this location here. They basically took the lakefront all the way down to Evanston. So that would have been taken what is now Lakeshore Drive or whatever the road, but there were roads back then. I mean, they did have cobblestone streets in Chicago. So they went to Evanston, they cut back over, went a little bit west and came back down Western Avenue, went by Riverview, which is at Belmont, used to be Belmont and Western Avenue. Then they jogged over to Milwaukee Avenue, came back Milwaukee Avenue, and basically came back on State Street. 2 cars finished, both of them gasoline-powered cars, which still proves to this day that gasoline-powered cars are the only efficient way to get around. These morons that believe we're going to have electric cars forget one little fact. Where is the electricity coming from? But anyhow, I'm here to celebrate 125 years. Chicago, this is back when Chicago had real leadership. Nowadays, we got cheap shirts, empty suits, running Chicago. Crime is out of control. We got a mayor that's a joke. And but back in those days, that's when all this whole lakefront, the Burnham Plan, the entire lakefront would become part ownership of the American people. That's what public access means, that this lakefront belonged to everybody. That's why you don't see industry on the lakefront in Chicago. That's why Chicago has the great lakefront and maybe the largest beach system and the most lifeguards in the entire world. So that's my statement here. Bill Wilt generally would come here. My friend Bill Wilt, who's I've been friends with going back to 1970 when I got into motorcycle racing, Sycamore Speedway, and then Bill and I raced at Santa Fe Speedway. And for many, many years, Bill, well actually I'm going to show you some footage during the show. Bill was here in 1995 for the 100th anniversary when I put this rock here. And people have been coming back. As you see, there's a great number of people. We don't have to worry about the Chinese plague. You know, now we got this president-elect who's going to be in bed with China. So keep our fingers crossed that they pull this thing off and Donald Trump becomes president again.
You had to go there. Seriously.
Of course I have to go there.
It was really good, really good.
Of course I got to go there.
And you had to go to China?
Does this plague come from China?
No.
Do you got a mask on
No.
because of China?
No, it's got nothing to do with China. You know what runs everything? Keep filming. Mother Nature. She controls you.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to say something about Santa Fe because I used to flat track too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Springer, me, all those boys. You had to go there and ruin this whole thing.
It's my TV show.
I don't give a crap ass about your TV show. I served my country. I got shot at for your freedom to have your stupid ass, crap ass BMW here. Go away. You just ruined my first time here and you ruined it by bringing up great politics. Our country is one.
Ask Ivanka where her shit's made.
There was a time before the great American feud of the 21st century when folks could discuss politics peacefully.
You had to do it, man.
Now folks on the left are being exposed by President Trump. They want to change America to the dark side, and they can't control themselves anymore. Instead of civil conversation, they shout, like Maxine Waters has instructed them to do. As I look at these three Corvettes, a C5, a C6, and a C7 body style, and we see this vintage van leaving as it tours the Rock, I had a chance to talk to three members of the North Shore Corvette Club.
My name is Eric with the North Shore Corvette Club. We have three Corvettes here today celebrating the 125th anniversary of the first car race in the country, keeping up the tradition of coming here on Thanksgiving morning.
I can't really say much more than what Eric says, but I've been doing this for 15 years, and being a mild day, it was worth the ride. And we're going to drive the North Shore north up the Tower Road and make the best of it.
Right.
And yeah, that's it. My name is Frank, and I'm with the North Shore Corvette Club also.
All right.
My name is Marshall, and I've been coming here for probably 11, 12 years. It's really cool. I usually come with these guys. I think it's great that we're here for the 125th anniversary of the first road race, or the first automobile race in America. It was sponsored by a newspaper, and there were about 11 or 12 cars. They started here and they went to Evanston and back. There were no roads, there was no highway, there was no outer drive, there was nothing. And I think about half of them made it. And I just like coming here every Thanksgiving morning. It's fun.
Thank you, gentlemen. As we see this BMW of Fran Koch's, a bike that he took all the way to Alaska, and it replaced his Triumph. I had a chance to talk to my former instructor from the Groton School.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Fran from Arlington Heights. I've been coming on and off to this event for a long time. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool biker. I belong to the Chicago Norton Owners Club and to the Chicago BMW Club. I'm an Iron Butt Association member. And this is one of my favorite things to do on an annual basis. This bike has been to the top of the Alaska pipeline in Prudhoe Bay, Dead Horse. It's been to Eagle Plains, over on its way to Inuvik. I didn't get to Inuvik because the weather turned sour and I couldn't ride through that. Other than that, you've heard a lot of information about the 125th anniversary of the first race in America. If you read the online stuff, if you look at the newspapers of the day, this race was actually featured as a motorcycle race. And you'll see that in the various literature online. I'm really glad to see Dan and a lot of people here today. I thought it might be a dud because of the pandemic. And I'm grateful to have survived the pandemic and the politics of this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fran. Now let's jump back to 1995 with Bill Wilt and the lovely ladies of motorsport.
So he wanted to use his newspaper, the Times Herald, in order to stimulate creativity in the automotive field. Or again, the automobile wasn't invented. In fact, part of what he did was he had a contest as part of this first automobile race to try to name these vehicles. And the name that won, I'll give it away because it didn't stick. Say it?
Motorcycles.
Right, Motocycles was the name that won the contest as what to call the horseless carriages. M-O-T-O-C-Y-C-L-E, motorcycle. That never really stuck. But what he did was he said, we are going to have an automobile race and it's going to be from Milwaukee to Chicago. That didn't work out because they couldn't get all the governments involved because it was 2 states involved and lots of counties and all that. They couldn't get that, so he finally settled on it was going to be from Chicago, from right here to Waukegan and back. It was going to be, I believe, and some of this I might not be dead accurate, I believe it was supposed to be like November 2nd, 1895, and he had like 80 entries, but when the time actually came for the start of the race, there was only 2 people with running horseless carriages, so he wanted to postpone it for another, 26 days, whatever it was, to Thanksgiving Day. 3 days before Thanksgiving Day, 1895, they had a freak snowstorm with 60-mile-an-hour winds. The city was under snow. It looked like the city was impassable for this race, and so there was pressure on him to postpone it again, but he was already kind of becoming the laughing stock. The other newspapers in town were making fun of him, saying these contraptions would never be anything, they'd never go anywhere, blah, 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 and all the rest of it. So he says that race is going to come off no matter what. We're going to do it on Thanksgiving Day. So as we stand here right now, it is just about exactly the time, 100 years ago today, the first automobile race ever held in America was held right here in Chicago, starting literally right here from this point.
As we look at the announcement for the 100th anniversary event, let's listen to a few speeches.
At the original race, there were 83 contestants who lined up. Only 6, all equipped with a foghorn or a trumpet in order to let other vehicles or pedestrians know to get out of the way. Only 6 ended up by being in the race. They started up at the starting line. One of them ran into a horse cart in front of the Art Institute, they tell us, and another one crashed into a sleigh. And we're lucky to have with us today the great-grandson and grandson of the winner of that race. It was on a very blustery Thanksgiving morning, 100 years ago today, after a 12-inch snowfall. Only 2 of the cars, traveling at about 15 miles per hour, made the full 54-mile trip from here at almost this spot to Evanston and back again, both internal combustion vehicles. In 1945, on the 50th anniversary of the race, more than 30 vehicles turned up. Today we have more than 100. And then we have a couple other things for you, and then we'll start the race.
Well, thank you. On behalf of the J. Frank Duryea family, my father and my mother Marita, who are here today, we want to thank you all for turning out on such a important day in auto history. It represents a great period for the year ahead, and you're taking the time out of your Thanksgivings is a wonderful thing for us to see, and we salute you. This is an important day in auto history, and it really has been a great month for the Duryea family. We were in New York earlier this month for the unveiling of the commemorative stamp, and today's event ends the month on a real high point, and that is commemorating not only 100 years of automobile racing, but really what historians like Dr. Scharsberg and Tom Rees and some of you here who are here today recognize as the birth of the automobile industry, and really when Chicago introduced America to the automobile.
A word now from our historian, Dr. Scharsberg.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to say just 1 or 2 words. They said keep it short, and I was almost tempted to pull something that's a little bit theatrical. I may do it yet and then just take 1 or 2 moments. My purpose here is to try to put this race in perspective in terms of why the race and why Chicago for that race. My inclination was to really keep it short and say what was the significance of the race. Well, here it is, right here. This is a booklet prepared by Frank Duryea, and it says, when Chicago introduced the automobile to America. That's why the race. This event, more than any other event that occurred at any other time, was responsible for opening the door on the auto age. It began here. It began in Chicago. The great significance of it is precisely that. Nearly every historian, nearly every auto enthusiast dates the auto age beginning in 1895. Herman Colsatt, editor of the Chicago Times-Herald, had the idea for it from watching the race in Paris, and decided that America needed it too. He promoted it, and it started from relatively near here. And with that, I think that's enough. Just remember what Frank said. A few years later, the significance of the race, when Chicago introduced the automobile to America. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, as we watch the beginning of this parade of over 100 vintage cars as they ran the entire race route from this spot to Evanston, Illinois in 1995. And in 2016, I sat down and had a conversation with Bill Wilt. Let's listen to part of that conversation.
Well, as we do every year down here at the Rock, I ended up finishing up with my old friend Dan Schmitt. Dan, tell the folks who you are, where you're from.
I'm from Chicago. I live in Chicago. I've been in Chicago my entire life, and I do a TV show called Team Chicago Challenge. I should point out that this is 30 years I've been doing the show. I've done 1,328 shows, and mainly 90% is all motorcycle related, motorcycle racing, a lot of motorcycle racing.
Great. Dan, you're pretty active on this thing. I used to tease Dan all the time and call him Mr. Chicago because Dan used to run a coffee truck when we were both racing motorcycles back in the early 70s. Dan, what was it? Dan's Coffee Cup, right?
Dan's Coffee Cup, and our good friend Joe Scarlatta also had a coffee truck. So me and Joe got to see each other almost every morning for 10 of those 22 years that I was Coffee Dan,
and you saw all, because your route was downtown, and you saw Chicago being built.
Most of the big buildings in Chicago were built during the 1970s and the 1980s. Prior to that, the biggest building in Chicago was the Prudential Building. Right. Yeah, I'm proud of Chicago when it used to be the greatest industrial city in the nation. It used to have, in fact, in 1970, there was 400,000 manufacturing jobs in Chicago. We built everything in Chicago. And the statement was, if you couldn't make it in Chicago, you couldn't make it anywhere else. So Chicago was always a very great city. Well, I mean, like we're here behind the Museum of Science and Industry. This was the site of the World's Fair in 1893. And then they came back and built they had the World's Fair again in 1933. And Chicago was the center of everything in this country, but I think they've lost their way in the last few years.
This is a motorsport show, and what I want to talk about is how you got yourself involved with motorcycle racing. I should tell our audience, if you hadn't seen these shows before, Dan and I kind of met each other out at Sycamore Speedway. Sycamore Speedway is in Sycamore, Illinois, and it happens to have a professional level short track out there. And they raced amateur motorcycle races on Friday nights and stock cars on Saturdays and Sundays. And it really surprised me the first time I went out there. That's a professional level track. It's just every bit as good as Santa Fe was.
Santa Fe, I mean, I look back, I am so blessed that we were there right in the center of motorcycle racing at its greatest point. It was right when the movie On Any Sunday was made. Dave Aldana, Gene Romero,
Lawwell.
Jim Rice, Mert Lawwell, Bart Marco, Gary Nixon. I mean, the names go on, and these were all the greats of motorcycle racing, and we were right there. You and me were right there, and I'm like,
I out-qualified Mark Brailsford one night, and don't think I've forgotten it, because I haven't.
And now let's jump back to 2020. We're at the Rock, just south of the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, as we see this Corvette. It's a C4 body style Corvette, and I had a chance to talk to the owner, Pete Bellender.
Hello, Dan. I'm Pete Bellender. I come out here just about every Thanksgiving morning with all these car nuts, just to get together with all the guys. And I really enjoy your show, Dan, with all the history and everything you did. And we're learning a lot about the racetracks in the Chicago area. And we really enjoy your show, Dan.
Thank you, Pete. As we see some more, over 100 cars showed up today at the Rock. And I had a chance to talk to my good friend, Crazy Art, who's a proud owner of an Alvante.
Crazy Art Nushevich, and I love to come out here every year. What a way to celebrate Thanksgiving. I got to thank Dan and Bill Wilt for doing all of this all these years. It's the 25th year of this. I usually come to promote the Avanti Club and the Nash Metropolitan Club and the Norton Club, and I usually wear an Avanti t-shirt, but this year I wore my Legends of Motorcycle Racing t-shirt in honor of the wonderful get-togethers that our Jim Verito, who left us, used to get together, and now Dan and Bill have had little meetings, and Dan has thrown some good get-togethers, and they talk about the racing at Santa Fe Speedway, and it's a nice get-together. So in honor of that, I wore my Legends t-shirt. And I love to promote the Avanti because it was a performance car from Studebaker. It came out in 1963. It had superior power. It had a supercharger on many models. It broke a lot of land speed records back then. Andy Granatelli promoted it on television. And if you get into technicalities, even because of the small grille on the Avanti, when Lowry designed it, he wanted no chrome on the car because the cars were full of chrome back then from the 50s. And they designed the Avanti at a very small grille underneath the bumper, if you notice. And the cars in long driving would tend to run warm and overheat a little bit. And Corvettes had the same problem too with their little radiators in front. So back then, Studebaker went to Germany and they found an oil additive that cooled the engine down. And do all of us remember using STP and having an STP bumper sticker on our cars back then in the day? So that's part of the technology that Avanti has brought us, and Avanti almost became the James Bond car. Ian Fleming was at the 62 New York Auto Show, and he chose the Avanti, but he needed 9 of them for production, and Studebaker couldn't make them fast enough. So they got an Aston Martin instead.
Thank you, Art. And now let's look at this promotional clip about the land speed record Alvante.
This is the Great Salt Flats at Bonneville, Utah, a landscape weird as the mountains of the moon. An eerie valley where men and machines pursue the elusive goal of world speed records. Humming over this 12 miles of Salt Speedway, a daring driver sits in the bucket seat of a Bonneville record breaker. The star of this big effort to clean the slate of stock car speed records is Studebaker's sleek new Avanti from the design studio of Raymond Loewy, built by the craftsmen at Studebaker, skilled vehicle engineers for 111 years. These record assaults are the final tests of the car's safety features. They are far more rigorous than anything possible at factory proving grounds. The crack timing crew of the U.S. Auto Club are making last checks on their electronic timers as Andy signals he's ready to start writing new pages in the record books. There's the green flag. That's green for go, and the muted scream of the little 299 cubic inch engine bounces back from the sheer rock walls of the surrounding mountains. The records tumble one by one as Andy pours on the coal. He hits the big one, 168.24 miles per hour over the measured kilometer from a flying start. This is almost 15 miles an hour faster than the old record set here just a few days ago by the former American stock car record holder. The mile flies by at 168.15 miles an hour, and the big ones that the crew has eagerly awaited are in the bag. The 10-mile records, both flying and standing, fall to Andy and his crewmen, and so the job is done. Avanti now holds 29 new records, 9 of them national class records, 10 of them American stock unlimited class records, and 10 of them American Class C stock car records. There is no hilarious celebration as the salt-crusted car pulls into the pits. For this task of vehicle testing is workaday stuff for Andy and his pit crew. The accomplishment is great, and Andy Granatelli, the man behind the wheel of the nation's fastest production car, is quietly happy today on the vast salt flat of Bonneville, Utah.
As some of the cars head home for Thanksgiving dinner, that's it with this clip. I want to thank Bill Wilt and Motorsports Unlimited TV show for the additional footage. On Facebook, you can always look for Motorsports Unlimited. To contact me, it's teamdan45@gmail.com. I love to hear from my audience. And I highly recommend a visit to Jim Kirsting's World of Motorcycle Museum. It's in Winnemac, Indiana, just south of North Judson, Indiana, on Indiana 39. For more information and their times, give them a call at 574-896-3172.